Can I help you, ma'am?
Well, they told me to take a streetcar named Desire, and then transfer to one called Cemeteries, and ride 6 blocks and get off at Pollution Fields.
There's your car now.
Tennessee Williams was born in 1911 in Columbus, Mississippi as Thomas Lanier Williams. His family later moved to St. Louis, Missouri, at which time Williams really started to get into writing. His first major play was The Glass Menagerie, written in 1944. It is the main example of the memory play, and is closely linked to his family experiences. The character Laura in Glass Menagerie is considered representative of his sister Rose, with whom he was very close. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia as a young adult, lobotomized, and was committed to an institution for much of her adult life. It is argued that most of his works have some connection to his own life experiences and the people he knew, hence the aptness of the memory play format. In an article for Southern Quarterly, Philip C. Collin remarked of Williams that his life was the experiment that fueled his plays, stories, and poems. Williams was an extremely prolific writer and won numerous Pulitzer Prizes over his career. I've included a list of major plays here. As you can see, there are a lot, but he also wrote poems, short stories, and novels. He enjoyed critical acclaim as well as the criticism of the more conservative bodies for the subject matter of which he wrote. Still, his career went strong until his longtime partner Frank Miller died of lung cancer in 1963. His death ultimately ushered in Williams's decline both in his career and his health. Williams was found dead in 1983 in a hotel in New York City, having accidentally choked to death on a bottle cap. Today he is recognized as one of the most celebrated writers in American history. Streetcar Named Desire was written in 1947, and I'm going to give you a quick historical backdrop through the United States at this time. The 1950s is classically associated with conservatism. The president at the time the play was written was Harry Truman, who was in office from 1945 to 1953. He's most famous for having made the call to use nuclear weapons against Japan in the war. Following World War II, there was an economic boom. Soldiers all came home from the war and went back to their jobs. Babies also boomed at this time, subsequently. Having just come out of a total war environment, there was a real emphasis on the all-American family and the morals that went with it. On the home front, women's left their jobs in factories, some willingly, some less so, and went back to the domestic sphere. Politically, this is also a time we associate with the falling of the Iron Curtain and the start of the Cold War between the US and Russia. The Cold War lasted from 1947 to approximately 1991. With all this emphasis on all-Americanness combined with the nuclear arms race with the Soviets, there was an equally large, if not a larger, push against communism in the United States. Spearheaded by Senator Joseph McCarthy, the House Council of Un-American Activities was founded and made numerous inquiries into anybody they found to have any slight connection to or sympathy for the Communist Party. The time period from 1942 to 1957 is referred to as the Second Red Scare. The House Committee famously met its match in the entertainment industry after the creation of the Hollywood Blacklist in 1947. There were many in the industry at the time that were communist supporters or at least intrigued by the ideas. 10 prominent entertainment figures, such as writers and directors, etc., were put on trial by the House Committee. They were called the Hollywood 10, and they created quite a stir. Arthur Miller, a contemporary of Williams, famously wrote The Crucible as an allegory comparing the Salem witch trials to the House inquiries. So the times in which Williams wrote and grew up was a very charged one. There was a strong and powerful conservative impulse, but there was also a lot of discontent and dissent which ultimately came to the surface in the 60s in the forms of sex, drugs, rock and roll, feminism, and war protest. This was a time of introspection for many in the United States who had the desire to inspect and push back against the systems. This can be seen in Williams' work in the nature of his characters' plots as well as in his own life story.
Blanche Dubois is an aging but still attractive Southern belle who holds high standards regarding class and culture. However, her poise is an illusion she presents to shield others and herself from her reality, and is also a feeble attempt to make herself seem more attractive to men. Blanche arrives at the apartment of her sister, Stella Kalowski, who lives in a lower-income neighborhood in New Orleans with her husband, Stanley. Stella, who fears the reaction of her husband, welcomes Blanche with some anxiety. As Blanche explains that their ancestral southern plantation, Belle Reve, located in Laurel, Mississippi, has been lost due to the mistakes of their ancestors, Blanche's composure begins to deteriorate. Blanche tells Stella that her supervisor allowed her to take time off from her job as an English teacher because of her upset nerves, when in reality she was fired for having an affair with a 17-year-old student. Along with other underlying problems, this led Blanche to escape Laurel and inspired the visit to her sisters. It is soon revealed that Blanche's brief marriage was ruined by the discovery that her husband, Alan Gray, was having a homosexual affair. Alan's subsequent suicide led Blanche to withdraw into a world which fantasies and illusions blend seamlessly with reality. In contrast to Stella's good nature and Blanche's apparent fragility, Stella's husband, Stanley, is a force of nature, primal, brutish, and sensual. He dominates over Stella and is physically and emotionally abusive. Stella tolerates his behavior as this is a part of what attracted her to him in the first place. Their love and relationship are heavily based on powerful sexual chemistry. The arrival of Blanche upsets the emotional equilibrium in her sister and brother-in-law's marital home. Stella's concern for her sister's well-being gives Blanche the courage to hold her own in the Kalowski apartment, angering Stanley and leading to conflict in his relationship with Stella, who we find out is pregnant. Blanche and Stanley constantly butt heads throughout the play, and Stanley's friend and Blanche's would-be suitor, Mitch, also gets involved in the mix. Stanley goes on to discover Blanche's past through a co-worker who travels to Laurel frequently, and he confronts her with all the things that she has been trying to put behind her. Stanley's attempt to reveal Blanche for who she is ends up turning cruel and violent. In their final confrontation, it is implied that Stanley rapes Blanche, resulting in her nervous breakdown. Stanley has her subsequently committed to a mental institution. In the final moments of the play, Blanche utters her signature line to the kind doctor who leads her away. "Whoever you are, I have always depended on the kindness of strangers."